Joe Rogan just said one line and the internet exploded. Was Charlie Kirk actually silenced or set up? Pause. Here's everything they don't want you to know. The web didn't just react, it exploded when Joe Rogan delivered his bombshell on the most recent episode. Rogan spoke the phrase that would set off an earthquake in politics and entertainment, and millions of listeners froze in shock. In his opinion, Charlie Kirk's widow was not who everyone thought she was. And whole storm of conjecture, mistrust, and sadness may be stoked by just one serene sentence uttered with such weight and accuracy. Hashtags such as Tag Charlie Kirk Widow, hashed Hidden Truth Exposed, and hashed Rogan Reveals quickly were trending worldwide. No one could tell whether his fans believed him or not. In reality, who was this woman? What exactly was Rogan alluding to, and why would he put his life in danger to bring it up and discuss it? According to those close to Rogan, he had been hoarding this knowledge for months, fearing the consequences it would bring. Rumor has it the widow pleaded with him to remain silent, afraid that the truth would bring eternal shame upon her. But that was already a very long time after the fact. The spark ignited into a raging fire the moment Rogan spoke. This wasn't just another celebrity fling. As the video went viral on TikTok, X, and YouTube, this hit close to home. Very private. Nobody was prepared for the deeper and more perilous reality that Rogan hinted at. If the truth were to emerge, the story of Charlie Kirk's death and the lady he left behind might be completely rewritten, say those directly involved. One question dominated every debate in the days that followed Rogan's astonishing assertion. What was Joe Rogan's goal in exposing Charlie Kirk's widow, and who was she exactly? When Charlie's life, his abrupt death, and his widow's peculiar silence initially were connected in ways that are now hard to ignore. We must go back to the beginning in order to comprehend the weight of his words. Known for his passionate speeches, daring opinions, and constant presence in the political limelight, Charlie Kirk had always been a flashpoint. A vast network of allies and foes was woven within his dominion. He came out as aggressive, confrontational, and inflexible in public. However, his closest associates saw a guy who was always at odds with himself behind the scenes. Being millions of people's hero and villain had taken its toll on him. His marriage was one of the few things for which he was human. The lady who would become his widow, his wife, stayed out of the spotlight. She kept her distance from his political life and maintained an air of peaceful privacy. Few people recognized her, and even fewer could recall ever seeing her at occasions at his side. She remained unseen, until the point when everything broke down. Reports of Charlie's untimely demise were first characterized as a terrible accident by the media. Stress, fatigue, and an undiagnosed medical condition were cited as the causes in official reports. Intended to put concerns to rest before they even began, the answer was too neat, too clean. However, there were skeptics. Strange late-night calls, erased texts, and a startling allegation from a security guard that he heard yelling inside the Kirk residence hours prior to the tragedy were all discussed by fans and insiders. The widow maintained her silence throughout. Avoid doing interviews, no claims. Minimal public outcry. The release of only one private message. For the first time, he is at peace. The internet went into a tailspin with just one statement. At long last. Finally, what was her point? Unfounded and irrational rumors flew about. Rumor has it that she was mourning alone. She had been intending to leave Charlie, according to the assertions of others. She allegedly knew what was coming, according to a vocal online corner. Suddenly, the disclosure made by Joe Rogan had given fresh life to every notion. Fast forward to the present day. This is due to the fact that Rogan did more than just advise. It was evident from his words and actions that he had seen, heard, and received information that the death of Charlie Kirk was not what was first assumed. An unnamed whistleblower approached the podcast crew some weeks earlier, according to several sources close to Rogan, who claimed that this was the beginning of the true story. The source said that they had digital evidence that linked Charlie's widow to a covert transaction that included the manipulation of money and treachery, which had the potential to bring about the greatest possible damage to reputations. Having been a skeptic for his whole life, Rogan spent weeks investigating every aspect. If even half of this is true, people would lose their minds, according to a message that was purportedly leaked by a producer. Rogan claimed this. Another person said, "She won't make it." Through this. However, it was only the first step. People close to the widow claimed that her conduct changed long before Rogan said anything. Guests' late-night arrival, accompanied by their tinted automobiles and ear-piercing disputes, was observed by the neighbors. She allegedly offered money to delete old files and postings because she was preoccupied with erasing her history, according to a former acquaintance. A writer claimed that a close associate of his was disclosing his private information. Concurrently, Charlie's increasing paranoia was reported by anonymous Reddit users who claimed to have worked with him in his last months. Even his own family didn't inspire confidence in him. Someone else wrote, clearly he was worn out, just as if he sensed an impending threat. People at the time disregarded these remarks as background noise on the internet. Their dreadful weight increased following Rogan's revelation. As well as the widow's continued quiet, it exacerbated the problem. She chose to remain silent in the face of all the commotion around her name. No claims, no more explanations, under no circumstances, but instead she completely disappeared from view. Overnight, her social media profiles were deleted, her phone was turned off, and her former residence seemed deserted, according to her neighbors. The reporters who attempted to contact her recounted disturbing experiences. The blinds suddenly closed as the journalist reached her last known residence, despite the fact that there was no one in the vicinity of the window, according to the journalist. According to another, the alarm went off the second he set foot on the premises, and a terrifying computerized message beckoned him to evacuate the premises shortly after. Despite the widespread anxiety and conjecture, one question lingered in the background. For what reason did Joe Rogan decide to talk at this very moment? He was not acting on impulse, according to those close to him. Many thought he had been influenced. According to some, he had received threats. His motive for disclosing the truth may have been influenced by the imminent release of the evidence he was in possession of, according to one particularly unsettling view. Before the story got out of hand, he may have had no choice but to speak publicly. What precisely was this proof, if that is so? And why was Charlie Kirk's widow the direct target? Just because anything may happen with the following twist. A single audio leak, which was 47 seconds in length, was published late at night, barely 3 days after Rogan's show was broadcast. This was the beginning of anything. Hours before Charlie's death, an enigmatic account named @TrueSpillsFast shared what it said was an audio taken inside the Kirk residence. Even if the tape had a little distortion, the voice was still easily identifiable. Yes, that was Charlie. His voice betrayed his anger and fear. Then, over all the static, another voice could be heard, a fragile one, but audible nevertheless. It was definitely her, however, Charlie exclaimed. So you believe the general public has no idea? Her response was delivered in a voice that was shaking. It is important that you cease. The rage of Charlie, please don't deceive me ever again. After that, she murmured something that left everyone around her speechless. I was unable to stop her. What they forced me to do is beyond your comprehension. There was then a thump, shattering glass. Suddenly it stopped. The footage detonated in a matter of minutes. Views in the millions, reposts perpetually. The internet is a cacophony of conspiracy ideas. Did that really happen? Was it reworked? Its leaker? And why now, immediately after Rogan's expose? His legion of devoted followers sprang to the conclusion that this was the proof Rogan had been hinting to. Some thought he had orchestrated the leak to get more attention, and they were right. However, the problem only became worse as the internet continued to investigate. The tape, along with other data, was sent to Rogan over encrypted email months before by a sender known only as MK Alpha, according to a confirmed source from Spotify's podcast section who anonymously contacted several sites within hours. Allegedly, a disturbing note was attached to the email. Notify them that she is aware of what's happening to me. Out of nowhere, the widow's quiet didn't seem to be one of grieving. It gave the impression of guilt or anxiety. The number of fragments that surfaced increased as word of the leaked audio circulated. The widow reportedly met with a high-profile media executive in a darkly lit Los Angeles club, according to a picture that was posted on the internet. Yet another leak revealed what she reportedly stated in a text thread shared by the account @SinsiderLeaks247. I have completed it. No longer will he pose an issue. Charlie passed away 2 nights before the texts were sent. Online discourse erupted. Her aides wasted no time in brushing everything off as baseless accusations, yet the general population seems unconvinced. In front of her previous residence, reporters gathered. Floating over roofs were drones. The inquiries reached all the way to distant cousins. Everybody sought answers. A media storm had swept into Joe Rogan's life out of nowhere. Rogan came back to his studio in the height of the craze, appearing weary, anxious, and oddly controlled. Speaking straight at the camera, he said, "This was not something I wanted to blow up like it has. However, my previous statement, I felt compelled to say it. It was instructed that I do it. Everybody is unaware of the fact that there is more going on here." The internet went into a frenzy at that last sentence. It was told to by who? Why? Did someone try to persuade or threaten Rogan? A leaked private email purportedly sent by one of Rogan's producers to a buddy in the LA media circle emerged shortly after that episode aired. Her innocence was cast into doubt in the subject line. There was a single chilling statement in the main body of the communication. Throughout, she collaborated with them. Immediately, theories began to emerge even though no one knew who they were. According to others, it indicated that Charlie's career was associated with rich political contributors. Thoughts of a powerful, clandestine media conglomerate were advanced by some. Several even went so far as to claim that hidden powers were attempting to censor the truth by infiltrating Rogan's own program. The unexpected turn of events, however, happened next. In the course of Charlie's last year, a new source emerged, and it was a former assistant who had worked in the Kirk home. In an interview with a non-affiliated journalist, she consented to have her voice changed and simply identified herself as ML. Everyone was taken aback by her testimony. According to her, Charlie was aware that a person who was close to him was interacting with an unfamiliar party. All throughout the home, he discovered burner phones. He had already cautioned her. "Don't believe the story they give you if I disappear." ML wavered in response to the question of who they were. According to her, the widow had been meeting in private with a representative of a media company that stood to lose a lot if Charlie dug more into some of the inquiries. The crowd was captivated by her last remarks. No names were spoken, but I do know that he was frightened. The story had developed to the point that Rogan could no longer control it by the time the interview was over. Everyone started analyzing the released audio, influencers, experts, commentators, and the general public. Several listeners noted that the video clip had some faint background sounds, such as a door creaking and what sounded like whispering, maybe even the presence of numerous persons. Some others thought the widow had been framed because someone had tampered with the paperwork. A forensic audio expert made an appearance on a tech livestream and said that his research proved the voices on the clip were 96% legitimate. This was the moment that caused the most shock. She had conducted private interviews years ago, and the widow's voice matched those. The people didn't need anything more. Prior to long, she was famous all around. Under thumbnails, her face was pasted, revealed our long-lost photographs. Detectives in the digital realm began assembling chronologies. Memes ridiculing her purported confession were abundant on TikTok. Nearly 2 million people have liked a single viral post that said, "Imagine Joe Rogan exposing you while you're attempting to hide your background." Because karma always wins in the end. The widow's attorneys, meanwhile, put tremendous pressure on Rogan's team. A retraction was sought within 48 hours, and confidential letters that were subsequently released accused him of disseminating dangerous falsehoods. Rogan, however, did not return. He bet twice. He added, "You can threaten me," while staring directly into the camera on his subsequent broadcast. "I am open to being sued. I will not be silenced." However, the reality cannot be concealed. What really occurred with Charlie Kirk is something that people have a right to know. Once again, everything altered at that instant. A blurry home security footage that showed Charlie Kirk walking around his study while visibly upset and chatting to someone off camera was uploaded to the internet only a few minutes after the program was shown by the network. Slamming a document on his desk and shouting, "You said they would protect her," were moments when he became angry. She is now also a part of it. A woman's shadow swept across the floor and the footage abruptly ended as a door swung open. After then, there was a brief period of instability until the screen turned black. A mystery copyright allegation led to the removal of the video clip from all major platforms within 1 hour. However, the harm had already been done. Lots of people had seen it, countless copies preserved. Additionally, for the very first time, individuals started asking a question that was completely different from anything they had ever asked before. Was Joe Rogan also involved, or was the widow the only one with anything to hide? The freshly disclosed tape was slowed down frame by frame by detectives working inside the internet. The discovery reverberated across all platforms. The stated timing of Charlie's death did not match a timestamp that was tucked away in the video's corner. After the authorities said that Charlie had already passed away, the recording was completed as shown by the stamp. If something were to be shown, all previously held beliefs would be immediately disproven. Was Charlie's death that night really fatal? On the other hand, had someone convinced the whole globe that he had? A second avalanche came crashing down on the internet almost instantly after the first one, altering the course of events irrevocably. A storyline that was already in a state of disarray was further exacerbated when a second round of leaks exploded into encrypted forums. The widow was unimportant this time. Secret recordings weren't at issue. Charlie wasn't even the main subject. There was talk about Joe Rogan. The huge data dump was shared by an unknown account called MK Rebirth at precisely 2:14 a.m. Eastern. Rogan was related to the same murky network that the widow was alleged to be connected to according to the emails, bank records, and internal communications that were included in the folder. An email exchange had a single phrase that dominated the conversation. "They will pursue us both if she speaks. Until the video is out, remain silent." Images from the screen were shared on Reddit, Telegram, and Discord's underground forums. Deciphering information, comparing typefaces, and matching digital signatures required analysts to dissect each line. For some, the widow was more of a scapegoat than an antagonist. Some others believed that Rogan was being coerced into coming out via the use of blackmail. However, it became clear that people used to think Joe Rogan was completely innocent. The internet went crazy almost immediately. Even though he had been praised as a truth-teller only days before, the guy was now being portrayed as a potential conspirator. News headlines exploded over global news streams. New documents implicate Rogan in the Kirk scandal, and he finds himself caught in the middle of his own web of deceit. Reporters showed up in droves outside Rogan's Texas studio. Someone on the inside of the production crew allegedly fell quiet. A firm corporate statement was released by Spotify, in which the company denied any participation in any leak. Yet the public was not persuaded. Unusual occurrences were noted by the public. No one seems to know what happened to the old Rogan episodes. We updated the episode timestamps, anonymously deleted whole podcasts pertaining to spying. In the 48 hours leading up to Charlie's supposed death, amateur investigators found something even more troubling, a chronology that suggested Rogan had received a sizable wire transfer the same evening that Charlie's wife had been at a Texas event. The currency was marked, "Reserved for unexpected situations. Keep confidential." The amount is $1,750,000. Consensus broke out. Is it possible that Rogan was being framed via the use of papers that had been expertly faked, or that he had been paid to conceal something or protect someone? A conspiracy channel became popular in just 2 days after uploading a video titled Joe Rogan, also known as the Puppet Master, a night with 10 million views. But it wasn't the commentary that caused the internet to go crazy. Rather, it was a point that was concealed in the home film that had been released, and that many had missed. The scene in Charlie's study was slowed down by a digital investigator till a very little reflection in a mirror turned out to be visible. Not the bereaved, not any random stranger. One man. According to the breakdown, the visage had an eerie resemblance to that of Joe Rogan himself. Every platform was rocked by the discovery. On the night Charlie passed away, was Joe Rogan really there at the house? Hashtag Rogan exposed, hashtag where was Joe, hashtag Rogan in the room were the most popular new hashtags. For almost 2 days in a row, Rogan was a worldwide trend. Afterwards, he disappeared. Missing episodes, absolutely no posts, no claims, under no circumstances. It was all planned recordings that he canceled. All of his social media accounts suddenly disappeared. A shaky snapshot of him and 2 unidentified guys ducking and dodging photographers was captured by paparazzi as he departed his Texas home. Rogan on the run was the caption that was attached to the photo that was uploaded by TMZ. A half an hour later, the story vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, in a turn of events that nobody anticipated, the widow unexpectedly returned. With one mysterious message, her verified account came back online. It was your responsibility to safeguard him. No labels, absent background information, just a description. The web went into a frenzy. Was it Rogan that she was accusing? People in charge of the media? Immediately, comments began pouring in. As long as she is still alive, she's prepared to destroy everything. She has insight that we lack. This is far from finished. Another whistleblower then emerged, claiming to be a member of Rogan's own production crew. Omega was their pseudonym, and they sent out a 10-minute voice message that sent chills down people's spines all across the globe. That is what Omega claims. It was never Rogan's intention to make a public statement. Coercion was his only choice. They informed Rogan that if he did not go public, he would be the next target, according to Omega, who claimed that Rogan had been given recordings and emails. Although he did as asked, Rogan omitted the most damaging detail. There were others besides the widow. It was not Charlie who was prevented from disclosing his findings. Someone else in the media industry was involved. According to Omega, something belonged to Charlie. Data files, the evidence. A network that brings together influential people, political funders, and media giants via the sharing of information. For that reason, he passed away. It was Rogan's intention to divert attention away from the real issue by centering it on the widow. The internet reached a boiling point at that moment. The public wanted explanations. Who took part? From what did the files originate? In the moments before his passing, what was Charlie looking into? At the very moment when it seems that the storm could not get any more intense, a gigantic figure entered the discourse. Elon Musk is, in a mysterious tweet he posted, "Provoking the wrong people is something I warned him about months ago." Surprised they would really put a stop to him. Some information gets out. Before it vanished without a trace, the tweet had amassed tens of millions of views. In an unexpected turn of events, previous private direct messages, DMs between Rogan and Musk started to circulate, revealing the two of them discussing the exposure of secret systems and corruption. Curiosity began to pique. If Elon had knew what Charlie was looking into, did he play a role? Do you think Rogan was on his side or against him? Also, the widow has disappeared once again. However, this did not happen until a small independent station ran one last upsetting video. Sitting in a dimly lit hotel room, she spoke nervously, "He's still alive." He was cornered. In a few hours, the video was removed. It had been downloaded by thousands, nevertheless. A flurry of theories sprung out. Was Charlie Kirk still alive at the time? Had he been set up to die? Is the reality even more awful than anybody could have ever anticipated? Completely sidestepped the story was the mainstream media. The news that federal investigators had secretly revived the case of Charlie was, however, leaked by journalists working behind the scenes. Allegedly, federal agents were looking into messages sent and received by Rogan's team and unnamed authorities. Rogan's Instagram account suddenly reappeared with a single eerie post, as if out of nowhere, a backdrop of dark gray, plain text, "Look where you're supposed to be going." An immediate firestorm erupted in the comment section. So what's the big deal? Does he have a warning for us? Who the true enemy is? Groups emerged in cyberspace. There were many who claimed that the widow was proof that was manufactured by artificial intelligence and put to mislead people. Some even went so far as to say that the same persons who had silenced Charlie were after her. Furthermore, there was an increasing number of people who felt that Charlie's discovery just before he disappeared was more important than the widow or Rogan. Next, the hacking team DataFang revealed yet another shocking revelation. Phoenix, the Kirk project. References to psychological manipulation, political rebranding, and narrative control were found among the pieces. They said that they were able to find an encrypted folder and that they cracked the metadata from the files that were exposed. The internet went into a tailspin when a snapshot of a hazy heading. Protocol for internal media synchronization. Tier 1 objectives. The response came right away. Nervousness spread across the newsrooms, politicians took a step back, endorsements were withdrawn. In a series of warnings, Rogan's legal team warned that any more disclosures would be deemed digital warfare. Charlie Kirk's widow, the lady at the heart of storm, vanished entirely somewhere amid all this commotion. But the narrative was not even close to being finished, because the shocking reality behind Project Phoenix would be revealed by one more twist, one that would unite all the key players in this nightmare. The response from the general population was disastrous. The growing Rogan-Kirk widow drama captivated every feed, live stream, and trending page. A worldwide problem so massive that it was like a digital wildfire ravaging every continent had grown out of a single phrase in a podcast. Although the stakes were higher than in previous instances, news hosts drew parallels to the largest internet meltdowns of the contemporary era. Drama involving celebrities was over. There was no enjoyment. The simultaneous collision of life, death, concealment, and manipulation was palpable. Because of this, nobody could tell who was telling the truth or who was lying. Over the course of a few hours, hashtags such as Project Phoenix, hashtag Rogan lied, and hashtag HesBack were very popular on social media. Theories were flying in all directions on every major platform. Extensive evidence, including photographs, transcripts, distorted audio, and even what they claimed to be communications from Charlie himself, was suddenly shared by thousands of accounts that claimed to be insiders. Before it was removed, one post became viral, reaching over 10 million views. "They think I'm gone, but I'm watching," a whispered male voice said in it. Minutes after publishing it, the associated account disappeared. Everything went crazy on YouTube. As producers sought to examine every aspect of the story, dozens of emergency live streams emerged. For hours, conspiracy channels broadcast analysis of every leak, shadow, and glitch frame by frame. Corey DeLune, an investigator, published a documentary on Joe Rogan's covert operation, How Phoenix Faked a Death, which ran for 3 hours. He said that information from Rogan's erased episodes showed a pattern with upload and removal timings precisely matching significant dates in Charlie's last months. It was a terrifying conclusion. The narrative wasn't merely revealed by Rogan, it was created by him. But YouTubers weren't the only ones affected. It reached famous people. Well-known figures started taking sides in the conflict. A strange tweet was made by Jorge Masvidal, a fighter for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, which included Rogan's face and the message. "Months ago, he gave me a warning regarding this matter. I can't defend him longer," comedian Andrew Schultz said, seeming visibly distressed when he went live hours later. "Not after seeing what I have. All bets are off if he was present that evening." Following that, Elon Musk re-entered the fray with yet another message that was dark and foreboding. The narrative is being controlled by powers that you cannot even begin to imagine. It wasn't a mistake, Joe. He had been late. Allegedly in response to legal pressure, the tweet was removed after amassing 50 million views. There are several groups of online admirers. Rogan, according to one faction, exposed wrongdoing associated with Charlie's probe, making him a hero. According to the perspective of another group, he was a manipulator who altered the story in order to conceal his own participation. Hundreds of thousands of people weighed in on every aspect of the matter in Reddit posts. How genuine or contrived was the mysterious communication from the widow? Her freedom was being taken away. Is Rogan attempting to protect her, or is he sacrificing her? As a result, TikTok turned into a battleground. Listeners acted out the stolen music. Details that were unclear were scrutinized by analysts. The frame that broke the internet garnered 120 million views in only 3 days, making it one of the most popular viral breakdowns ever. As this was happening, the industries in the background started to crumble. Unfortunately, Spotify's stock took a fall. Rogan's program disassociated itself from the executives of the corporation. It was revealed in an internal document that all Rogan archives will be reviewed by legal professionals for possible removal starting immediately. The politicians were not the only ones who freaked out. Refusing to speak were senators who had previously supported Charlie's efforts. In response to reporters' questions, one legislator mumbled something. "You have no idea how profound this is," prior to his assistants hastily removing him. Next, the moment that brought the whole globe to a standstill arrived. The controversy was brought up by Clara Voss, a former FBI analyst on a primetime political talk program. During the course of the interview, she abruptly became motionless, fixating her gaze on an object outside the camera's view. Something snapped in her ear. She lost all of her facial pigmentation. "His whereabouts are unknown," she murmured. The transmission abruptly ended. The program was canceled. After that, nobody paid any attention to Clara Voss anymore. Things just got worse throughout YouTube. Even though it was only up for 17 minutes, a new video from Rogan's official account suddenly disappeared. There was no opening, no music, and no laughing. Just Rogan sitting alone in a dark room. His voice was trembling and low. They believe the task is complete. Still, it's not. Who is really behind this? You're going to find out. Drawing nearer, he drew nearer. Pay attention to the cue. Still going strong. Project Phoenix. Static was the last sound of the video. By the end of the year, it had surpassed all other downloads. The transfer was tracked by hackers to a Nevada communications bunker that had been deactivated. The bunker was deserted and devoid of any equipment when investigators arrived. Protests erupted in droves as the globe descended into chaos. A large number of protesters carrying placards stating, "Phoenix is in charge, free Rogan to discover the truth." When lines between fact and conspiracy began to blur, police forces found it difficult to maintain order. Even Hollywood was shaken. One night, hosts of late-night shows joked, and suddenly they became quiet. Rogan was unfollowed by actors. The Podcaster's Code, a documentary that supposedly connected Rogan to clandestine intelligence activities, was supposedly shelved by Netflix. A new battle broke out as digital vigilantes waged war online. The homepages of inactive news sites were replaced with the message after hackers hacked in, "He lived forever." Some people began to receive strange letters, decipherable binary codes that stated, "Awakening Kirk." Two main camps emerged among fandoms. Rogan was assisting Charlie in uncovering the truth, and the seekers were under the impression that Charlie was still alive. Rogan and the widow were manipulated psychologically by the watchers who believed they were puppets. The truth and falsehoods blurred into a single fog on the internet, turning it into a battleground. Suddenly, a disturbing trend emerged. Project Phoenix references started to vanish from all sources. There were no pages left on Wikipedia. The videos have been deleted. This account has been suspended. Pages did not load after clicking on the links. The narrative seemed to be disappearing into thin air. However, it was too late for the erase. Too much had been viewed by millions already. A brand new file was discovered on an anonymous account in the midst of that stealthy cleaning. The moniker, MP4 Phoenix a Restore. A shaky video of a guy standing on a cliff at sunset was recounted by those who were successful in opening it. Someone whispered from behind the camera, "The moment has come." The guy pivoted to face the camera. Just long enough for 1 second, his resemblance to Charlie Kirk was uncanny. Everywhere there was a lockdown. Did that really happen? An elaborate, the rebirth, a communication. Quietly, everyone was unaware. A consensus, however, did emerge on one point. The narrative was far from over. Change was occurring. Additionally, a dramatic darkening was imminent. The mayhem persisted for days, if not weeks. Something far more than a scandal had emerged from the Rogan Kirk widow affair. People battled over it with religious fervor, and it evolved into a digital mythology that was alive and well. With each passing day, more proof, leaks, and purported truth-tellers emerged. Additionally, millions of additional people were drawn into the storm on a daily basis. Rogan, the widow, whistleblowers, or hackers did not provide the ultimate twist, which was the one that no one expected coming. The narrative itself was its source. It all started on a site that had been forgotten about called the Echo Wall, a quiet and obscure forum that was mostly used by cryptography aficionados and investigative journalists. In the middle of the night, a post with the caption, "Phoenix has reached its conclusion with the last transmission." There was a video that was less than 3 minutes in length attached. Its file name, phoenix.mp4. Almost nobody gave it a second thought at first. However, the video became viral. An eerie stillness washed across the internet as soon as people started watching it. As a result of the impossibility of what they saw, a solitary overhead light illuminated a gloomy studio as the footage gradually sharpened from static. Off camera, a voice that seemed familiar said, "This indicates that the project was successful if you are viewing it." Charlie Kirk was seen by the camera moving to the side, staying alive, more refined, spirited away, however plainly visible. It seemed as if he were rehearsing his speech, his voice so calm. He said their job was to ensure my demise. Plans, however, shifted. When I discovered what I did, nobody was prepared. He drew nearer to the lens, like a person torn between
awareness and indoctrination. His eyes were empty but intense. Joe said something about trying to warn you. I was interrupted by her. However, Phoenix remained a mystery to both of them. Then the sentence that stunned viewers across the globe arrived. Politics has never been an issue in Phoenix. Rewriting reality itself was at the heart of the matter, as was power over people's beliefs. As he pivoted, the camera snapped a shot of someone standing behind him. Who was it? The widow. She looked pallid, her body was rigid. She didn't seem to be behaving autonomously, her eyes were wide and lifeless. Silence engulfed her, totally motionless. Quivering, she remained still. "Onward," Charlie continued. "Nobody will remember this. Phoenix operates in such manner, memory loss occurs. What you believe you saw and what you believe you know are both altered as a result." Smiling slightly, he seemed exhausted. "At least for the time being, however, you will think about me." After then, the screen went dark. For 8 seconds, a series of coordinates, numbers indicating a distant section of the Nevada desert, flitted over the screen. Rogan's deleted upload was previously tracked back to the same place by hackers. The file was automatically removed from several platforms a few seconds later. Thousands, however, had already saved it. Skeptics and specialists clashed immediately. Tech experts meticulously examined each frame. Signatures were assessed by AI researchers. It was an attempt to debunk it by deepfake experts. However, the disquieting conclusion was reached by all experts. There are no obvious indications of interference, not a trace of computer editing, nobody could tell it wasn't real. After that, Joe Rogan came back 2 days later. "There's no introduction, absence of visitors, no one is willing to sponsor me. He alone." With bloodshot eyes and shaky palms, he stared into the camera. He spoke with an almost whisper-like quality. What they said would happen really did. After Phoenix was triggered, they assured me nothing could stop it. He inhaled nervously. Even while Charlie is not dead, he is also not living. Charlie I knew was different from the guy on that video. It was as if they had programmed him into being. Millions of viewers felt shivers go down their spines as Rogan stated something. The widow was innocent. She had been used. What she believed to be paperwork for the media she signed, those contracts dealt with data. They activated Phoenix using her. He became more subdued. Charlie was always the side issue. We were all involved. He stooped down. "Next up, you." I felt the stream abruptly stop. His whole online persona disappeared in the span of an hour. All of his podcasts were deleted. Deletion of his accounts. A disconnect occurred between his studio phone numbers. His workplaces went dark. Joe Rogan seemed to vanish off the face of the earth. A weird phenomenon started occurring all across the internet at the same time. Videos that people had saved were becoming unusable. During replays, screens flicker. Inexplicable corruption of files. Downloads made while offline also became unintelligible. True memory gaps, according to some users, losing track of whole conversations or even specific information from quotations.
Digital amnesia became a common term in online discussion groups. Officials referred to it as paranoia. It was referred to as hysteria by experts. However, a much more unsettling rumor circulated among thousands. The Phoenix Project is underway. The widow reappeared, but just once, disguised as someone else at a tiny Icelandic airport as global chaos descended. She was reportedly frightened as she walked about with only a luggage and a phone, according to witnesses. She supposedly replied when a stranger inquired her whereabouts. Out of sight, out of mind. After that, she vanished. Observations of Charlie Kirk started to surface on a global scale after then. Brutal airport images. In crowds, figures are blurry. Observations made during live streams for reflection. Shadows captured by security cameras. Nothing has been verified. Quite disturbing. It seemed like every time I saw the guy in the photo, something was off. Two phrases that stoked fear resurfaced from Elon Musk. A new dawn. He erased it a few minutes thereafter. The news, however, spread like wildfire. Official declarations denying the existence of Project Phoenix started trickling out from government entities around that time. They referred to the whole affair as a shared internet illusion. However, the panic was further heightened by their denials. It had become a universal curiosity. Phoenix, just what was it? Some thought it was a psychological experiment to see how far one might bend reality. Some said it was a clandestine AI effort to confuse people into thinking the two were interchangeable. And the most sinister hypothesis ever, the simulation.
Had gotten out of hand, and Joe Rogan, Charlie Kirk's wife, and Charlie Kirk himself were all unwitting participants. The last shaking occurred all at once, affecting every single gadget. Somewhere around the globe, a push notification showed up on certain phones. Has no sender. Absence of app. The origin cannot be traced. The text was read. A lot has happened to you. You have 48 hours to reset Phoenix. What follows is complete quiet. End of leaks. Cut off all video. Statements are ended. Not a widow. Not Rogan. Not Charlie. Almost immediately after being cleaned, the whole article disappeared from archives and search results. However, members of the clandestine forums maintain that the data are still out there, somewhere in the internet's inaccessible bowels. Some claim that when you search for them, your screen flickers, your browser freezes, and your cursor locks. While for an instant, just an instant, it seems as if someone else is reflected in the screen. A happy face. You already know an excessive amount of information if you have followed the plot up to this point? Ask yourself this question before this video, along with everything else associated with Project Phoenix, vanishes. Suppose it's the truth. What if, instead of being furious, Rogan was afraid to expose the widow? Suppose Charlie Kirk really lived forever. Was that last broadcast really a glitch? The caveat being, major news outlets are ignoring it. It is being erased by platforms. However, the same event is reported by thousands of people worldwide. Entire files deleting themselves, posts just vanish, disappearing thoughts. Now consider this. Would you want to be the next one? Post your hypotheses here. Were you involved in silencing Rogan? Do you see the widow as an accomplice or a victim? Was Charlie's return in the last video or Phoenix's narrative manipulation the cause? Simply said, this is only the beginning. This is only the start. At any second, the next transmission may fail. We could be closer than anybody thinks to finding out where Charlie Kirk is and what he's become, if the locations in the leak were genuine. Do not avert your gaze. If you still think there is truth, hit like. Sign up now to find out what happens when it succeeds. And keep your wits about you. You never know when this video may disappear before dawn if Phoenix actually does reboot. Before that time comes, continue to observe. Persist in inquiring, and pay close attention. There, in the void that exists between uploads, concealed in the stillness,